Hey, it's the 359 podcast, episode 247 on Tuesday, June 27th. I'm some guy, and here's a couple other guys.
Hey.
Good morning, guys.
What's up, guy?
Hey.
Hey,
I'm
guy.
not your guy, buddy.
Sorry.
I'm flying blind here. I didn't know I was doing the podcast until 5 minutes ago.
That's right. So if Ben's comments sound incoherent to you, well,
Even more incoherent
yeah,
than
that's
normal.
just really his normal
Yeah.
shtick. So
I was at a Facebook holiday retail event. Yes, they talk about holiday in June.
like we're talking about like end of the year holiday,
End of
not
the year.
July 4th holiday.
I would say
Because
Christmas.
we've got a
but
holiday coming up.
I would no. I mean holiday as in fourth quarter holiday.
Holiday season.
Buy stuff and put it under whatever tree you want to call it. I don't know. Some people celebrate this thing called Christmas. Not me. Okay.
All right, let's get back to the topic on it.
If you couldn't tell, we're supposed to be talking about Super Nintendo.
We're talking about the Super NES Classic. We'll also be discussing the release of the public beta of iOS 11 and the biggest fine that the EU has ever levied on a company.
And
that
it's
is-
on Google.
It's on Google. So we'll talk about that. If you have any questions on any of these topics, leave them in the comment section. Brian will pick out the best, and we'll get to them in 3 minutes and 59 seconds.
From 3 to...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
Nintendo dropped a bomb on us and unveiled the much-anticipated Super NES Classic. It will be released on September 29th for $80 and comes with 21 games, including the previously unreleased Star Fox 2. I totally want one, but given how rare the Nintendo NES Classic was, like I feel like I'm probably not going to get one. I don't know. Or I'm going to have to like punch somebody to get one.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, it's a great lineup. I mean, I think very few people would complain about the lineup of games that are available here. Great one, Star Fox, obviously Mario Kart, Street Fighter, all
People
Legend
seem
of
to
Zelda.
be really excited about Star Fox 2 because it didn't actually
Yes.
come out.
Yeah, that's sort of the big surprise. But we're just in sort of what we're looking, what's missing. What do we want to see from the Super NES Classic?
Okay. Admittedly, I don't think I had an SNES.
Lame.
Yeah, I think I switched over to Sega Genesis at that
Okay.
point.
Well, I had a Genesis
So
too.
I was pretty hardcore into Toe Jam and Earl
Okay.
and whatever other awesome games were on the Genesis at that time.
Yeah, I don't know. Like for me, a couple games missing from the list was Chrono Trigger. I was really hoping to get that. A Final Fight game, Earthworm Jim,
Earthworm Jim, very
NBA
nice.
Jam. Like some of those games are like those were classics. I spent so much time playing. I mean, obviously Nintendo can't cram every game in there. So what I'm wishing for is that this thing has some way to port in new games, either downloading SD card or something.
Yeah, my hope is that it's also not another limited edition one-off. It's obviously great that they came out with another one. Everybody was hoping that would happen.
It does feel like that's what they're doing. Like if you look at their comments, they're not talking about whether or not they're going to sell this thing after the year. They did say that they'd have more of a supply, but again, they're kind of telegraphing that this is kind of a limited time affair, which is weird, right?
People want to buy them, let them buy them. I just disagree with the notion, but I'm not Nintendo, so
I don't know. All right, next up, the public beta of iOS 11 is out. You can edit live photos, mess with the one-page control center, and record your screen. But remember, the final version comes out in the fall, and you're sort of taking a risk by accessing or downloading this public beta. Do you ever mess around with these things?
No. Wasn't there like one time where it bricked a bunch of people's phones with like a previous iOS?
No.
Or like an update or something.
That was actually
like
the final version.
That was the final version, and it bricked people's phones.
It actually bricked people's phones.
So after that happened, I know at CNET, this was new to me when I joined CNET, was that new versions or new updates of iOS would come out, and everybody would jump up and down like they're so excited. They have to download it immediately. But
Right.
generally, I like to wait at least a week or two, and especially after the bricking, that seemed to make sense.
Right, and that was the final version. This is just the beta, so there are bound to be glitches. I mean, we recommend if you're going to do this, you don't do this on your primary phone. If you've got like a spare device, spare iPad or whatever, you load iOS 11 onto that. So lastly, the EU just slapped Google with a $2.7 billion fine for manipulating search results, so its own shopping results would come up over its rivals. It's the biggest fine that the EU has ever levied upon a single company. But realistically, $2.7 billion, it's kind of a drop in the bucket for Google, right?
It is a drop in the bucket for Google, but it is definitely a big deal. I think to me it sounded like some folks are waiting for more shoes to drop on this one, where the EU could find Google for even more for other types of
Android
search
apps,
results.
search results. There are multiple investigations going on. And
Yeah,
this is
I mean,
sort
like
of the
they're
first of them.
so dominant in that
Yep.
market that the EU obviously at least is arguing that they have a credible argument to keep shaking them down for more money.
Exactly. All right, for more on these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
Thanks for listening.
So go ahead and submit your wish list for the Super NES Classic. I'm with you, Roger. I want Earthworm Jim.
Yeah.
That was a great game.
Such a hard game.
It was a really hard
Oh
game.
my gosh.
And well, while we're at it, let's get both of them.
Oh, Earthworm Jim 2.
Yeah, which was
Yeah.
a solid sequel.
Yep.
Everything about the soundtrack, the graphics got better. There was increased gameplay and action options. Mm-hmm. Man, those were good. I never had a Super Nintendo growing up. Did you?
I did.
You
yeah,
did?
Yeah. Yeah, I had both.
I had the NES.
I had the Genesis as a hand-me-down from my cousins, and I had the Super NES. I switched over to Super NES because Street Fighter came out. That sort of like was the game changer.
I like,
But
jumped
Genesis had the
between
better
two.
version of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, the controls were a little wonkier. The controller only had 3 buttons on the Genesis, which kind of like made playing fighting games tough. If you remember, like Street Fighter, you needed 6 buttons, right?
No.
So, wait, did you not play Street Fighter as a kid?
I played Strum Street Fighter, but this is really like diving into the recesses of
Is
my
it?
gaming life.
Well, so basically, what there was like there's kicking and punching, but there's 3 levels each.
right.
And so the Genesis
you
only
need,
had
like-
3 buttons. The Super Nintendo did have 6.
I
so
remember
you could-
in the arcade they would have the 6 button.
right. So with the Super NES, you had the shoulder buttons plus 4 buttons on the side, so you could actually do it. With Genesis, I think you had to like hit the start button to switch from like kick to punch or something. I forget what it was, how you actually played Street Fighter on the Genesis, but it was because you couldn't do all 3 buttons or all 6 buttons.
Right, unless you got one of those turbo controllers.
Right, but you had to buy a new
Sweet.
controller, which I did not.
Yeah.
I remember those.
I
Yeah.
remember my controller was really wonky too, which made playing Genesis games a little bit tough. Like
Let me-
sometimes the button wouldn't respond.
Let me ask you this: Do you think people don't really switch between Microsoft and Sony that much anymore? Like, you're basically a
you're an Xbox-
PlayStation
yeah.
person or an Xbox person these days
Well, it's
because
the console wars all over again.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I was a Genesis, did what Nintendo don't kid. But I had a neighbor who had a Super Nintendo. It was a weird strategy between my neighborhood friends and I. We all had different consoles. So like,
Right.
one kid had
yeah.
a Super, I had a Genesis. The kids around the corner had a PlayStation. So we had like all the bases covered there for a while.
I mean, like, because I went from Atari to NES to Genesis. At some point, I had a GameCube. I
Wow.
personally really like jumped between a bunch of them. I know a lot of people that like to game a lot, so they usually just get both. Like you get the Xbox and the PlayStation. But
Yeah,
I kind of feel like
I've
you've
actually
chosen your team at this
Yeah,
point.
I've been a Xbox gamer since the beginning, and I never went to play. And like most of my friends were all PlayStation users.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bought your Xbox 360.
Yeah.
I played it for a year, and I was just like, "What is this? This isn't gaming."
So what you're saying, you're not the demographic here.
Right. It was just
No, but he got a PlayStation.
I
So
got a
he's-
I got a PS4.
He just
did
realized
you?
he's not an Xbox guy. He's a PlayStation guy.
I'm a PlayStation guy. It's fine. I wasn't used to the controller. The controller like kind of felt like it needed a diet. I don't know. It was too chunky.
It's funny because I think that controller is like for me the optimal controller. Like I think the PlayStation
you
one is
told
way
me once.
it's way too small. Too
If you say so. I don't know.
the
All right.
triggers are perfectly
Potato,
placed.
potato, my friend.
But
you're
no, we were
from,
just-
you're
you-
from Venus.
You brought well, you brought up this point though earlier that like we've got this sort of resurrection of Super Nintendo and Genesis with the flashback Genesis console also available coming this year. We've got this kind of slight revival.
It's the
of this
return of the console wars,
Yeah.
part 2.
Yep.
I would be really interested to see if there's any kind of correlation between like kids who grew up Sega Genesis versus Super Nintendo, the
buying
loyalists.
buying the flashbacks versus the.
If they stay that way, or if they find that opportunity to kind of flip, or more importantly, if there is some correlation between I grew up on Sega, now I like Microsoft, I grew up on Nintendo, now I like Sony. If there's any kind of weird statistical
Cross-pollination.
If I had to say, like, I guess I would call myself a Nintendo fan, and then I migrated to Microsoft. So I wonder if, well, what were you? You were
I was all over
Genesis
the board.
to-
I started with regular Nintendo Entertainment System,
Yeah.
and then I got a Game
I
Boy.
think we all did.
Got a Sega Genesis, and then graduated to a Nintendo 64.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Stuck with Nintendo for a minute,
Yep.
went to
Yep.
the GameCube, and then eventually landed on an Xbox 360, and that's kind of where I slowed down. I haven't bought a console since then.
Got it.
Sorry, everybody. But the cream of the crop for me was when I got
Okay.
that Sega Dreamcast. And that's the one I will
yeah.
survive throughout. If the rest of them burn in a fire, I'll go back into that house fire to
For
save the Dreamcast.
Wow.
Ugh.
And
Wow.
that
I did
really
not
doesn't
like the
have
Dreamcast.
anything all
I-
that much
I
to
like-
do
I
with
liked it.
Sega, just the Dreamcast itself.
I like the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't have one. My friends
I had
did.
it's some of my
It was the
best,
first time I played like the 2K NBA games, which that's when I started falling in love with that.
I
that
just jumped
franchise.
back into playing Shenmue 2. that
As
I
you've
never
mentioned
finished.
a couple of times on this podcast.
I need help. If anybody out there in the chat can help me, I am really stuck looking for the Well in the Shoe book.
Well,
if anyone
let's-
can help me.
Let's get back to the topic. Like, what else would you want to see in this Super E NES?
Henry Chan in the chat says Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
He is so far from alone on that one.
Yeah, that was for me sort of like the number one missing game. And
Yeah.
this is a great lineup. Like, I feel like they really kind of knocked it out of the park because the NES Classic lineup of games, there were some hit and miss ones. It wasn't all great. These are all pretty solid games. I mean, no, these are all sort of like
I'm just kind of
some of these you could argue are like the best games of all time.
I'm just kind of surprised that Secret of Mana beat out Chrono Trigger.
Yeah. Although Secret of
Or
Mana
like
is a
you
great
never
Final
game
Fantasy
too.
2
What?
or Final Fantasy 4 technically.
Well, I think that is Final Fantasy 4. It says 3,
It's-
but I think it's
no,
it's
4
6.
equals
It's
2.
4 equals 2. So which one is this?
3 equals
6?
5.
5?
I forget now.
It's a weird
That weird like when
because
they were
games,
importing them out
games
of
didn't
sync.
come out of
and
Japan.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
I was
I saw
actually
a
just
YouTube
watching a
video
video.
on
I was
it.
just watching this the
No,
other day.
no,
and
but
now
I
I'm
was
brain
looking at it
farting.
like this is the good one though. Final Fantasy 3 is the
It
good
is a
one.
good one. It
Yeah.
is a good one. But I'm still like Chrono Trigger. Like that's legendary.
Yeah.
Danny Green in the chat says,
What's up, Danny Green?
I grew up with black and white TV with 3 channels. We played real board games back then. LOL.
Wow.
Boo.
Danny, how old
Attaboy.
are you?
Blue Wind Project follows it up. You grew up in the dark ages. Blue Wind, be nice. While we're
Black
at
and
it,
white TV.
Screen Blast in the chat is still angry about no wireless controllers.
I know.
Yeah, but like
know what?
if you're gonna go straight up nostalgia bomb, you gotta do
You gotta trip over some cords.
Yeah,
It's
you
a
gotta
rite of
like
passage.
accidentally like pull the
Honestly,
cords out
but
when
those,
you get too
those
excited.
original NES Classic cords were like obscenely short. I mean, this
Yeah,
is and
I
this is
know.
2 feet longer, which is still shorter than the original ones. So
I
like
think if
you're
you're
still
gonna go with nostalgia, you go with nostalgia. The wired controllers
like how-
is like very much part of it.
I don't know, like TVs aren't set up that way. You don't sit
I
4
agree.
feet from your TV
You're right.
anymore.
Well, you
It's
did when you were
true.
that age.
Well, yeah,
you
at that
pulled
age.
up a beanbag.
But our TVs
and-
aren't like that anymore. They're gigantic. You don't sit 3 feet in front of one. Well,
True.
At least I don't.
And, well, there's technically less risk in sitting in front of an LCD than there is or a QLED
Well,
or an
just
OLED.
get,
I
just
guess
get like
unless-
some extension.
Eye
cords.
damage wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. We were talking before about the peripherals and if they're going to develop wireless controllers or cable extenders. And after NES pulled the plug so quick
Yeah.
on the original classic, I got to thinking, like, the smart thing would be a third-party developer not to specifically develop for a given system, but to develop a Bluetooth hub with universal adapters.
Right.
So you could like when you travel overseas and you get a different outlet and you have to rotate your power
Yep.
cycle.
yeah.
Do something like that with different plug-in caps, so you can convert it to Sega, convert it to Nintendo, Super Nintendo,
Yeah,
and then
that's
it just
smart.
has universal inputs for all
'Cause,
those
yeah,
controllers.
there were a lot of third-party makers who just basically got screwed over when Nintendo decided to pull like the NES Classic. There's like huge stock of these wireless controllers on the market. Like all of a sudden, no one needed them. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It was too bad about that.
yeah, so it makes me wonder if these guys are going to come back and like make accessories for this Super NES thing, especially knowing that Nintendo is sort of telegraphing that this is a limited time affair.
They
Quick
actually
job.
did that right the first time.
Yeah.
This time.
Matthew Cox says, "Do we think it will be another Linux box that will accept a ton of games? Not by the sounds of it.
Wasn't the NES Classic like that, or
Yeah, but you had no way to actually put anything into it unless you took it apart
like you had to hack it?
and you had to
Yeah.
hack it.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean, I
a good
imagine.
I'm sure did.
a smart person can hack just about anything.
Yeah, I
but
imagine you could do it. You'll be able to do it with the Super NES. You just have to have the proper technical know-how.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
it's not going to be ingrained in it.
Right.
User friendly per se. And on that note, Nitro is requesting us sometime in the near future to cover the Raspberry Pi.
Oh yeah, I mean we actually have a how-to out there on how to build your own console with the Raspberry Pi.
Dan Graziano.
Dan Graziano did it. I think it's a little outdated because actually it's even easier now to do it. I think it's just a matter of like now you just load the ROMs in and you're like good to go. But yeah, we should do one on Raspberry Pi soon.
So
There's some kid in the chat named Alfred.
oh really?
He
Oh,
looks like he's
God.
about 12 or so.
Yeah, that
and he's
sounds
like
about right.
he's complaining about Chrono Trigger, but like he wasn't even born when Chrono Trigger was around.
Yeah, we can't. He hasn't disclosed his age, but we could just sort of tell by the way he's writing in all caps that he's got to be like 5 years old.
All right, let's talk a little bit about iOS before we wrap it up for the day. Blue In projects. So, like, will Snapchat make it so you can screen record snaps anymore once iOS 11 is publicly out? That's a thought, because you can't record
Oh yeah,
like iTunes movies on there. They disabled that. I
Yeah,
wonder
yeah,
how
yeah,
that
yeah.
would work against other video type
I
apps.
don't know. That's a great question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be smart for them to try to disable that, because that
Right.
could get into danger zone.
Especially with Snapchat,
Oh, yeah.
because of just general consumer expectation.
Yep. I'm just curious. Has any of our readers or viewers actually downloaded iOS 11? Just like I usually don't. I kind of rely on experts like Scott to download it on their
Right.
their test iPads.
Yeah.
and iPhones.
Not only that, but like I
Some
feel
of us
like
don't have multiple
Yeah.
tablets at home.
I just got the one.
I feel like the improvements are especially for the iPad, right? It's got
Yeah.
like, the file
Yep,
manager
yep.
and the the drag and drop and
Yep.
stuff like that to like actually make it a more more of a
More
computer,
usable, yep.
more usable computer function.
Still not there yet. I would agree. I would say it's just still not. Like I know Apple wants to push this thing as a almost semi full fledged
Right.
computer, but
if you're an iPhone
Semi-fledged.
user, is there like this one killer thing that you've been dying to get? That iOS 11 includes? Probably not.
No.
I mean, it's probably
I think
okay.
there's a lot of improvements that are like nice to haves.
One more from Danny Green before we wrap it up for the day. Let's move on to Google. He says, I'm guessing somebody paid Google to bump them up on the shopping list. Question is, did they make enough to cover the fine? Conspiracy theory.
Well, no, I think the issue is that they actually put their own shopping services up front, so they were profiting off of these manipulated search results. Personally, it wasn't.
Right.
I don't think
and
anyone
pushing
paid them.
competitors out.
Yeah,
I mean,
like the
it's
whole idea of paying Google to have like proper or higher placement, that's their whole business model. That's not illegal. But they have it sort of in a designated section, right? That's basically like paid placement, and that's
Right.
kind of the standard business model. I think what the EU argument is that they basically just moved for real, like actual search results,
for organic search.
organic
results.
search results. Google's results would surface above everyone
Right,
else's.
which was the primary fear that everybody had about Google
Yeah.
anyway. And, here's the proof that, yes, it has happened. And
yeah, because it
they're
totally
paying
controls
it-
what you see on the internet.
they're paying a ton of money, but at the same time, like, it's like we said, it's not a huge amount for Google.
Just in terms of reference, it generated about $90 billion last year.
in profit?
No revenue.
In revenue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, still healthy profit, but 90 billion in revenue, that's a lot.
Yeah.
All right, we're just about out of time for the day, but I want to pitch out some food for thought. We're not going to answer this right here on this episode, but start thinking about this. You guys are fighting against me on this. It's probably not a secret that the Nintendo will likely move on and do a Nintendo 64 in the realm of classic
maybe.
nostalgia mini boxes.
Maybe, yeah.
And then they'll probably shut that down too. I think, and this is a very personal theory, I have no grounds to back this up, that if they were smart, they would continue this trend. They'd do a GameCube, and then ultimately, once they've pulled these all off the shelves and left everybody blue-balled, that they'll put out an all-in-one box.
Wait, would they do a mini Wii as well?
I think the Wii is too contemporary, personally.
Okay.
Maybe.
yeah.
But at some point, an all-in-one box, because I mean they've got the virtual
What would it
console
be
anyways.
shaped like, though?
I don't know.
Like
it
a
be the
Mario.
NES
It's a Mario
classic?
statue.
Yeah,
A creepy Mario
Just
head.
like doing this.
Let's go.
But I would love to see that. If I knew that was coming down the line, I would hold out and I would buy that all-in-one box. So I get the Nintendo, Super, 64, GameCube, all in the same box.
Sounds like
that
we
would
should
be.
I
we
wanna-
should teach you how to make like a Raspberry Pi console.
No,
because I think
I,
that's the
I
only
want
way
to. I
do
want to
that.
present a slightly different theory, and my theory is that they probably end it with Super NES, maybe Nintendo 64 Classic, but they stop it there. They basically stoked all of our interest in these old games, got our whole nostalgia thing going, and then they basically shut it all down and then force you to, if you want these games, to buy the Switch or buy whatever future console they make, so you can access these games.
You
through that
can
console.
access those games
Which you can
on a
now.
Switch.
You
already.
can't. Yeah, you can now. And so, but making it sort of the sole place. Like if you want all these awesome games from your childhood, you gotta buy a Switch.
You know what would be great too is all the Super NES classics and the NES classics. When they do shut them down, they make the ones that you purchased stop working. So you really,
Oh my God.
so you really have to buy.
That's
the
just
Switch.
evil.
It's just
Easy there,
mean.
Satan.
Wow,
I'm
that's
just,
some CEO material right there.
I know.
That is some Uber
I think
CEO
I've just
material.
been promoted.
food for thought, everybody. Just think about what Nintendo's next steps are going to be, what competitors' next steps are going to be, especially now that Sega's putting out massive collections of classic games on
Yeah.
mobile. The smartest thing Sega's done in a while. I
Yep.
legitimately think that kind of gives Nintendo a run for their money as far as
Although,
audience
did
reach.
you try to play like some of the games? Like Sonic was kind of hard to play on my phone.
I'm just ticked that that's once again online only.
Oh yeah, because of all the ads.
Yeah,
there are a lot
and
of ads.
I paid for
They
the
gotta
damn app.
squeeze the money out of
I
it.
paid for the damn app, and it's still
Oh, it's still
online
online
only,
only.
even without the ads. That's dumb.
That's
I
not
hate
cool.
that. That makes me so angry. But I will give it to them. Crazy Taxi controls phenomenally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
I
highly
feel like
recommend the mobile
Sonic
Crazy
is
Taxi.
really tough to play on my phone.
It is because already that game is suffering from big sprite, small screen.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to like get down into smaller screen, and your thumbs are clogging up some of that area,
Exactly.
it is tricky.
Yeah.
But it's always been that way, all the way back to the original Christian Whitehead ports. That's my 2 cents on it. But anyway, it's
All right.
a glorious age for nostalgia.
Indeed it is. All right, let's wrap it up there. If you liked anything you saw or heard here, check us out on CNET. Our podcast is also available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, and Google Play Music. See y'all tomorrow.
Bye bye.